nau mai ki tēnei hui a hiko me ki ana ko te Toi Ako. So this is our Toi Ako webinar series. Nau mai haere mai ki tēnei kaupapa. Te tūmanako, a ka whaihua I roto I enei mahi, hei akoranga mā koutou. So looking forward to sharing a little bit about the kaupapa that Dr Ihirangi Heke has got set for us today. A couple of things that we'd like to share with you all first of all is the panels that you'll be able to see at the bottom of your screen. So there's a panel for Q&As, which is the questions and answers section down the bottom. Kia koutou te wā ki te pātainga pātai. You guys can ask questions through that at any time. And as Ihi's having this kōrero, I'll prompt them to kōrero about some of these pātai that are coming through. We're looking at a free flow session for this webinar, so it's going to be as dynamic as it can be on a Zoom session. A couple of things I want to make note of, whānau, is for you to keep the Zoom link handy. You would have got an email once you registered to let you know that there's a lot of people using Zoom and the internet at this current time. So keep the Zoom link handy just in case it drops off. We'll reset it again and it'll jump back in straight away. We've given it a couple of tests already. And for any reason, if it doesn't restart, we'll do a pre-recorded session alongside Ihi and get that out to everyone who's registered themselves to attend the webinar today. I runga I tēnā, ko te hihia tuatahi, te mihi atu kia koutou, kua tai mai nei, o tira kia koe Ihi. Nau mai haere mai ki tēnei kaupapa me ki. Atua Matua I te kāinga. So Atua Matua at home. What does this kaupapa look like and how this kaupapa and this Mātauranga Māori approach can be applied during this isolation period or this lockdown. No reira, no mātou ke te wai maari e, kua tai mai koe e hoa. Nau te wai tēnei wā, karawhiua.
O tēnā tātou, koe nei te mihi karanga kia koe hoa tōku nei kai tautoko ki tēnei o tātou mahi. Marungi te roro hiki o tēnā. Piki mai kaki mai ki tēnei o ngā mātauranga mōhiotanga o ngā atua, ngā kaitiaki me ngā tipua hoki. Aha ko e kore e kite ki a kōtou, we'll do our bloody best. I asked Dario to stay online because if I got no one to talk to, I get bored and wander off. And it's better that he's asking me questions or I'm talking to him and feel like I'm talking to him because I'm not that good at speaking directly to a blank screen. I need someone to have a chat with. So I asked Dario and Nikki, his Horangatira, to be online at the same time so that they can ask questions, I can talk to them, and I can feel like I'm having a conversation. So fairly informal approach in terms of really you're going to be listening on in a conversation between Dario, Nikki, and myself, and you'll have questions perhaps that you can run through to Dario, and I'll be able to receive those. He'll text those through to me or they'll come up on the chat. And that'll be our flow through for today. And we'll try and make it as interactive as we can. Ka pai tēnā, Dario?
Hi.
Okay. What I'm going to do is take you for the odd wander around to look at some things as well. We'll try and make sure that we've got ongoing access to our server. And if I'm out in the back room, I might have to come back out, but we'll see how we roll with that. Okay. So, anything else you needed to throw in there now, Dario?
Got it.
Right, we'll go through and see some of our kai tautoko. I've got my daughters lined up to give me a hand today for showing some of the things that we're going to do. They've been out the back here bargaining around for the last week or so because it's been locked down for them as much as everybody else. Are they going to sing you a song by the look of it? Lucky buggers, eh?
Be to our
You muted yourself, e hoa.
Oh, yeah.
Surgery, so she's wretched for doing anything much of jumping around. And this is my little one over here, Awatea. We sometimes call her Boo Boo because that was a bit of a surprise. Someone said that too many of my wānanga are serious, so I'm doing my best to be a bit more relaxed and include whānau in here and see what we can do to have them included. The other thing I asked Niwa to do is I've got a blackboard down the end here, and anytime we talk about whakapapa, I'll get her to write some of that up on the blackboard. This is old school as, not even a whiteboard. We've got the blackboard there, and she'll come down and try and write some things up. Is that all right, Dario?
Right, pai te ra. Mihi ana e tahi kia koe e hoa. Lovely to meet your whānau ihi. Some of the comments that are coming through.
Yeah, they, we know them as Haurangi, Wairangi, and Pōrangi. I'll let you guess which one's which. This thing's shot dead. Okay. Give me some ideas on how you want to, based on your plan for tonight, what's up first and how we want to do this one, Dario?
Ka pai. I guess the first section, te pātai tuatahi e hihi ana, te wānanga me ki. Nā tēnei kaupapa Atua Matua. So what is Atua Matua? And how can this kaupapa, I guess, support whānau in this lockdown period?
Well, probably one of the interesting things to know is that if you want to look at it from another perspective, this isn't a new situation for us at Ngai Māori for having an unwanted visitor turn up while we're trying to conduct things that we would do in everyday life. And the pōhiri process has shown this in the past that while it's not a virus, sometimes when people turn up, we're not sure what their intentions are, and we would hold them at arm's length and further and hold them out there and not let them get close enough. So that isolation, or definitely that space of having 2 or 3 meters between us, was more than that in the pōhiri process, and the marae ātea served that as a purpose for making sure we could determine what was going on. At this stage, it's Haukanga and manuhiri that are having to deal with another manuhiri, which is COVID-19 turning up. Right. So it's not that it's anything particularly unusual for us to have to deal with unwanted visitors, and the processes we're using may be unique in some ways, but in others, not so much. So you can keep that in the back of your mind that we're dealing with this manuhiri in a pattern that we've seen before. As far as brief explanation for Atua Matua, I get a lot of requests about this one. And one of my mates says to me, bro, you should get someone else to do it because you're wretched at it. Which I find kind of hard.
Me, just so you know.
No. Well, a couple of people who have said to me, I tried to read it, but it was a little bit too dense. Or our mate Wiremu Mato got through to page 2. He drank 2 pots of tea and says, Momo, I'm out. What I did recently, probably a couple of months ago, was condensed it down into 10 pages. I think you could get a copy of that probably from Nikki, yeah? Nikki's done a lot of work in this space. Nikki, next to Dario there, is doing a fair bit of work with Sport New Zealand, and especially in the area of play. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, yep. What are some of the ways we used to play in the past? What are some of the ways we are currently playing now? And what are some of the ways that we want to play in the future from a Māori whakaaro? Right.
And some fairly interesting context coming up with mainstream schools in the ways that you're looking at how to develop e-learning, and especially in relation to Atua Matua. So I think that role that you've got there, and in Tamaki with the number of schools there, is only going to grow. So I think you've got a really good handle on things there. And Nikki has a copy of that 10-page version. At the end of this, you'll be able to give some email context to Nikki.
Yeah, cool.
They can get to me as well, but I'm not that flash with paying attention to emails particularly. And I'll be outside on the lawn or doing some running or
smoke signals suit better, eh?
Yeah, or I'll be out doing a bit of biking. So that's always going to be carrying on. However, Atua Matua, something that I wrote more than it must be 12 years ago now. And I've said this to a number of people, and it sounds kind of glib when I do say it. I sound like a bit of a dick, but I didn't actually write it for anyone to read it. I wrote it for myself so that I could use it to understand that the work I'm doing has consistency and authenticity with the communities I work with, because it's not so much focused on what we need to do as health providers, but what the recipients might need. And then it moved into another space of actually we need to move past what recipients need and into what the environment might be able to show us and teach us, and recipients can learn from. So Atua Matua was a very deliberate move to shift away from being about people and being about the environment, and looking at the causal effect or the systems that causes change in people. Now, Māori in the past used to operate this way. And it's evident in most things that you see about us, that we talk about our awa, our maunga, our moana. We talk about all of those things, the very first introduction to ourselves, because as far as we're concerned, those are the things that cause us to be the way we are. And if you like, those are physiological representations that come from the environment. I've been calling those envirophysiology, that we're put together as a person to be able to move in and out of the dominant features in our area in order for whakapapa to be perpetuated. Which means that if we want things to survive in a space, then they've got to learn how to handle that space really quickly. So that idea of being able to shift away from health being about people and into the environment is a threatening one to most people, because for the last 70 years, we've been based around the idea that health is about an individual. For Māori, it never was. And for most Indigenous people, it never was. It was mostly to do with how do we learn about water, learn about land, or learn about atmospheric conditions in order for us to survive, and what genetic material we could strengthen through understanding what environmental effect will do. So it's a shift back to ways that we used to understand our world. So if you like, that's the umbrella concept around Atua Matua. Atua is a connection to understanding all of our environmental representatives, and all of those will come through water, land, or stars. So that's the top level of everything, is that actually what we're after is a better understanding of Mātauranga Māori, or knowledge. So instead of making it about health, we make it about the pursuit of knowledge. Okay. The next level down from that is about whakapapa. And why we do this is that this is a critical phase, and a lot of my mates had said to me that they'd misunderstood this part because I hadn't described myself. Quite often I get hoa with those fellas and say, well, get smarter. But it turns out that I hadn't said anything about it. But whakapapa in this particular instance isn't a list of people. How whakapapa has been used in the past is that it's a verb. It's something that you do. It's not something that you read or list. It's not a noun. It's not a descriptive process. It's an engagement that you have. So whakapapa in this context of Atua Matua is something that you go out and you strengthen by doing the do. You have to go into the water to understand the atua. That might be kiwa, might be tīwhanui, might be mohi, might be kiwa, all those different atua. And those four, when I roll those out, people are like, bro, I've never even heard of any of them. One you will love. Koko is one of the atua that connects to the currents of water. People know koko because it's connected with swimming. So there's all those different atua. And when it comes to whakapapa, to strengthen whakapapa, we have to get out and understand who they are. And ideally, what will happen is that we can show a contextual relevance of that whakapapa to the group we're working with. So if you can't show that the information you're talking about has any relevance to the group or community you're working with, the likelihood of sustained effort is bugger all, because it doesn't mean anything to them. So I'm not going to go into an alpine area and start talking to them about the ocean. And will I do vice versa? They want to know how snow works versus how the ocean works. They're quite different places. Mm-hmm. Next level down, hua tau. I'm doing this as fast as I can, bro. You're already moving around your seat like, bro, hurry up.
No.
Well, the next level down, hua tau is, what is this environment and whakapapa a metaphor for? What's it trying to teach me? What am I supposed to know by going out and swimming in the ocean? What am I supposed to know? And most people think it's, well, it's to learn how to swim in the ocean. But actually what it's supposed to do is use the personification or the representation of Atua to teach you some other life skill. So when you learn about swimming out and then standing on, say, a submerged rock that's 10 meters out and you can stand up out of the water, one of the things you notice is that rock is permanently there. It doesn't move. And we can use that as a metaphor for learning about the importance of being steadfast and standing no matter how many attacks are made on us, that we can follow through. Just for one example. There's a gazillion of them really, and they're limited by the creativity of the user. So the huahuatau is where we give you license to make some suggestions on what you think the whakapapa is trying to teach you, what Atua is trying to say. And in all those places, there's new things that we find out every time we go out. So it's always developing new knowledge. The fourth area is the whakatinanatanga. And generally, people that work in health go straight to the whakatinanatanga space. And in there, what we're talking about is the action, doing a CrossFit program, doing a weight session, doing a run, doing a paddle, doing whatever. But most places I go to will start there. But if you can't provide an upper level rationale for why you're doing it, that has nothing to do with physical activity or health, the likelihood of recruitment and sustainability is bugger all. How are we doing, bro?
Yeah, Pātai taku.
Okay.
So I guess listening to that kōrero, it's down to the interpretation of the user and how they identify with the bodies of knowledge that they're going to focus on. I guess my whakaaro for this is, how can this particular kaupapa of Atua Matua support a whānau that's currently in the lockdown position, Neki, in this isolation space?
Yep. Hard. We're going to get to that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go next door in a minute and I'll start showing you how we use Atua Matua across the whole day in our whare when we're doing things. So I'll get my daughters involved in it soon. I'll show you some whakapapa. I'll talk to you about Atua. Then we'll roll down into the whakatinanatanga phase and see what we can actually reproduce as information that's come from those domains. Is that all right?
Okay.
I think if we had to drop it down into 4 areas, really, it's to do with the concepts of which area we're working with, water, land, or stars. So what domain? Then we want to look at which whakapapa line we're going to follow to get to the area that we're in. Then we're going to look at the huahuatau, which is to understand what are we supposed to learn, or how can I use that information to teach something I'm interested in, or a curriculum document, or as an RST, what kinds of physical activity or health issue am I trying to address? Whakatinanatanga is choosing any physical activity you want to roll out that can align with those. In the past, what's happened here is a lot of organizations, institutions have thought that we've been restricted to using maurako, kapahaka, and tākoro tawhito as our main areas to do that. That's just not true. We can use any physical activity we choose to and show concepts that connect to any one of those areas around water, land, atua, whakapapa, any of them. And it's really easy to do. Once you get the right karuwha on, or mōtiti, or the right glasses to see it, it's around you everywhere. It just takes a while to adjust, but once you're in there, you start to wonder, how long have I been existing in this place and not seeing any of this? So those are the 4 areas. And we recently put in a 5th area, which is around tohutanga. And tohutanga is understanding what signs tell us when. So the top level question is, why am I learning this information to do with Mātauranga Māori? Whakapapa is, who am I going to look at and try and understand? The huahuatau is what? What am I supposed to know? The whakatinanatanga is the which activity am I going to choose? And tohutanga is when. When will I be able to understand those signs that tell me it's a good time to engage now or later or whenever? Is that all good, bro?
Right, parawa. That's the next stage that we're moving on to, was tohutanga.
Okay. So shall I jam that out now, bro? Okay. Well, I'll have to walk back out here and we'll start to actually have a go at looking at tohutanga with the girls out here. Niwa, you want to come over and do a bit of writing on the whiteboard?
I mua e tērā, tētai pātai. There's a pātai that's come through, you might be able to answer before you get there. Is this all linked to the maramataka in any way?
Yeah, totally. Tohutanga, when we discuss maramataka, there's phases on either side of maramataka. There's kaupekatanga, which is seasonal change. There's maramataka, which is monthly change. Tohutanga is 3 and 4 day change. Yeah, you can write those up if you want, but she's put a hangman noose up next to my name. I don't know what that means. I think that means if I get it wrong,
How many times you fellas got to answer the questions, Koutou Ma?
So maramataka is the most well known, but not many people think much about kaupekatanga. Kaupeka is actually the atua of seasons, and that usually spans across 3 or 4 months. Maramataka across the month, and when we're looking at tohutanga, that's what I want to discuss a little bit today, is because, or tonight, because those are the areas that we can reach in our whare really easily, or even just by going outside. You got kaupekatanga, maramataka, you've got tohutaka or tohutanga if you want to, tohutaka, and there's rātaka too, or daily changes that we notice. She's concentrating hard out. See, that's got a tongue sticking out. So, got rātaka, tohutaka, kaupekataka, and maramataka. All of those tell us about when we should be engaging with something. Now, the tohutaka is what I want to talk to you about tonight. We can talk about those others on another day, but the tohutaka under there. Sorry about that. There's 5 clear areas around tohutaka that we need to discuss. These are manu. Oh, you know these two.
Yeah.
But you can't remember them all.
Insects is next.
Taitanga pēpeke, insects, rākau,
Fish.
ika, don't translate for them. They don't need bloody translating if they don't know those.
No,
they
that's
shouldn't
not.
be
I just
watching.
can't remember.
Okay. Taitanga pēpeke, and the last one that we have in there, haven't we got manu, ika, rākau, and the last one they have on there is anything that happens above us. So to do with tarangi. So weather. Just put weather. That'll do for now, Bob. So those are our 5 areas. Manu, ika, taitanga pēpeke, rākau, and tarangi. So what we're going to show you now is some of the ways that we use these tohu to figure out what's happening with changes, or daily changes, monthly changes, and so on. And why we use these is that what we're currently working on, because I'm working with a group called Tapu Waikura that are going to be in 10 schools across the next 18 months, 10 kura, is looking at how to introduce these ideas as an alternative to RAMS forms or SAPS forms, safety action plans, or risk assessment, is that we're using tohutaka to tell us whether we should be going or not, because it gives us a 3 or 4 day forecast on whether it's safe to go based on being able to read what trees are telling us, what birds are telling us, what insects are telling us, what fish, and what weather changes are telling us. Is that all clear so far, bro? Can handle?
Tanga me ki, I guess it's based on the tohu that are relevant to the rohe or the activity that you're wanting to.
Yeah, no, dead right. So those are the first introductions to that one. What I want to talk to you about specifically, and might be.
No, need it again, what?
Hang on, it says I'm muted. Can you hear me, bro?
Yeah, you went off for a couple of seconds there.
Yeah, is that I've made it my, I don't know what you would call it, but my buzz, my area, my thing that I do is to understand all 5 of those areas really well. And I think that our people as already understood all of those areas really well. Still good?
Kapai. He pātai te tātetahi.
Yeah.
So as a pātai, what influenced you to add tohutanga to your framework? Was it your cycling trips or your mahi with papa? And that's from Aaron Hinari.
Kia ora. Kia ora.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did do a lot of work with Rel, as you know. But what I was finding was there was big demands for RAMS forms in schools. And I said, well, they sound like shit to me, actually. I think what I would rather see is a better understanding of which atua, kaitiaki, and tipua we're dealing with, and how to read those was through those 5 areas. And prior to any work that I did with Reriata, we were already discussing this. Maramataka is a more advanced level of that. Tohutaka is more about this 3 and 4 day risk assessment and understanding what that means. If you want the real juice on this one, then Reriata's king on this topic. But I'm not too bad on reading the tohutaka or being able to understand whether we should go or not. And a lot of that is because of being out in the bush for the last 30 years. I started out guiding when I was 16 down in Milford Sound in Pio Tahi and taking people out into the bush down there. And when you got things wrong in that place, because they get 400 inches of rain a year, a southerly, when it's on its way, would change the color of the fjord. So it would go black before it arrived. So the watercolor would change, the weather would change, and then the shape of the waves would change well before it hit. And I didn't know it, but I was already reading that before it would happen. And then when I'd take people in, they would say, well, how do you know? So I don't know, I just know. So over time, what I've learned is actually I was reading all of these areas, but just didn't know I was doing it. I think what...
You're muted again.
I learned these things after I left school. Then I went to university, learnt more there. And now what's been happening is that after spending time with the Ngātis and the Hauitians over on the coast, they schooled me even more. So at that point now, that the combination of all those 3 areas is what's resulted in this area. So none of this should be that new to you. I think, Aaron, you've seen it a few times, and for any of our other mates on there. Either way, we all good, bro? Shall I hook into a couple of examples now?
Right.
Okay. So at the moment, what I'm buzzing out on, have been for quite a while, is teitanga pēpeke or insects, which kind of sounds a little bit out there, to be honest. And fellas are saying, why is this so buzzy now? What are you into? Well, no pun intended, but they are kind of buzzy. But I'm into this because they're easy to see all around you, and you're never further than 10 feet from an insect, and especially spiders in Aotearoa. And it's not always like that in other countries, but here it is. And what's really interesting to me is some of the whakapapa explanations for different insects that we see right within our house. So although my wife is a bit of a cleaning Nazi, and spiders don't actually last that long in this whare, I tried to get some that we could save, and there's a couple that I have outside that I'll read now and then. Heaps of you have heard me talk about this before, but we've used spiders as, for example, a means of measuring time change. And how we do that is that if I'm going to start a session, so I've got the girls are in here, and we've got all these different bits of bloody equipment that we mess around on. If we're going to use those, sometimes what I'll do is I'll go out, and there's one beside my shed, there's a spider there, and I'll pull the cobweb apart. Then we'll start our session, then we'll go back and see how much of it's been rebuilt to show us how long we train. So we can use those spiders to do that. But what I'll do at the moment is I'll show you some of the Atua Matua approaches to how we describe, explain, and understand what this particular line down to spiders does. I'll move on to one of the other ones a bit after that too. Oh, here's bloody monk.
What's that tohu?
Yeah, that's a tohu for doing jack all. This is old Ngāti Kuri lying on the ground over there. Actually, someone said to me, bro, that dog's either going as fast as he can or asleep. Dogs are like their owners, they tell me. So I said, oh, yeah, no, I'm all right with that.
While you're on the move,
Yep.
Can this framework be effective for Pākehā? And do you have any examples?
Oh, totally. It's just as much the environmental information that is affecting non-Māori as it is for Māori. We have whakapapa lines that explain these. There's versions of non-Māori science that explains some of those anomalies that we'll see out in Taiao as well. I'm one of those that believe we got to start sharing this information, not just with Māori, but with as many people as we can to ensure its survival. And I think that there's a utility in understanding these environmental effects right across all New Zealanders, because it shows our point of difference as people from here about how we understand our environment. So some of my mates get nervous with that one. They're like, bro, you're giving away stuff that's, restricted information. I don't know about that. If I can access it and find it, then other people can too. One of the caveats or one of the things you might need to consider is that when you are talking about this, is that it's not necessarily yours.
Right.
Say. So it might have come from a particular iwi, and it may have come out from some historical content in a particular place, or you may have found it online or wherever you found it, as long as when you're talking about it, people know that you're not trying to claim it and say, this is mine. As Māori, we kind of understand the idea that knowledge isn't something that you own necessarily, but it's something that we get to engage with and become better recipients of health outcomes when we understand the intent of that knowledge. So there's some other questions about that, discussing the idea of what are we supposed to know, what's the intent of these things. Anyway, we good to go? All right, so in an Atua Matua approach to starting with one of these tohutaka areas of insects in particular, because I can see them all around in my house, I can find a spider anywhere. They're a really easy one for me to use, so I use these ones fairly regularly. Whether it's for timing how long we're doing a run, a bike ride, or how long our session is on the wind trainer or with the girls lifting weights, any of those things, easy one to do. Actually, when you fall off your bike, you can use them for jamming into the holes where you've got cuts and things as well, because it stops blood flow. It's pretty handy. The other thing that I used it for the other day is that when I'm out and from our place, because we live in the middle of bloody nowhere out here, we're very rural, and there's little tracks and things right next to our house. When I walk through there, I can tell which direction they've gone because the cobweb's broken or it's not. So I use it as some way or a way to track where the girls are walking in front of me, so that if I'm hitting cobwebs, they didn't go down that path, they went the other one. So I use it for a whole range of things.
I've seen it as a tohu before, but I'm up quite high, so I'm the only one who's breaking the spider webs at the moment. Everyone's walking behind me, so they know where I've gone as opposed to me chasing others.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That's a good point. Actually, it might be that they're short. Depends where it's hitting you in your arms or whether it's hitting you around the face, those kinds of things. Okay, so we're going to start with the spiders. We're looking at an Atua Matua approach to this. I don't know if it'll write on that word, but see if it will. This area we're talking about is connected to whenua. So whenua is our upper level explanation, our rationale, or where we're going to connect to this particular body of knowledge. So this Mātauranga is coming out of a connection to land. The whakapapa down into this one, I'm looking at spiders in particular. This is where people freak out a little bit because they say to me, bro, we just don't know any of this whakapapa and there's too much of it and it's too hard. You've got to make a start, or you've got to get your head around the idea of how do we connect to those in our area. So in essence, what I'm trying to say with whakapapa is if you can't see them in your 20 or 30K radius, the likelihood of you having an interest or sustaining interest, or even the kids around you sustaining interest, is bugger all. So you've got to be able to make sure that there's relevance for that particular thing you're discussing. So with spiders, we want to have a look at the whakapapa that comes down into them, and there's quite a few different ones. I'll start out with homia tiki tiki. Just homia. So homia at the top of this one. Homia is our atua of uncultivated food, anything that grows wild, usually associated with ferns. Quite a homia. So an I in there. Homia tiki tiki is also the atua down through ferns. Rahu rahu in particular is the first carbohydrate that we used as Māori. That was the one that made Pākehā travellers quite sick, but we'd built a resilience to it. So from homia, we come down into rahu rahu. Rahu rahu is a particular type of fern. It's a bracken fern, and that's a carbohydrate that we find everywhere, and it's the one that we use. Rahu rahu. Under that, we come down into aruhe. Aruhe is the root that comes off that. Under that one, monehu. And monehu, are the spores that come off this particular plant, and that's the origin of some types of insects. Now, in one whakapapa line that I looked at recently, they were saying that mosquitoes and sandflies come off this line. Generally, they don't. They come off another line that's to do with the atua vines, Atua Matua. So put Atua Matua over here, but yeah, just put Atua for now. So Atua is the atua of vines, and there was a request made by Atua Matua from Whiro Te Tipua, who's our atua of disease and hake and kutu. He's actually the atua of balance. He's the one that, if you get a fat head and get whakahihi, he's the one that pulls you back into the line. But Whiro and Tāne were climbing up to get to Ngā Kete Wānanga, and Whiro was losing, and he asked Atua Matua, can I borrow some of your children, which were mosquitoes and sandflies, or anything that flies and draws blood. So the insect line to those ones is a different line. But for some, they say it all comes through monehu. And there's another line as well that comes through Tangaroa. Well, there's two that run at the same time, actually. Just put this one over here, brother, if you can. Some of the children of Tangaroa, Punga, Ikatere, and Pautu. It's under Punga that we get a line that runs down to a couple of the insect lines that we see under there. Toi Tangata Kino in particular, from Tangaroa to Punga, and then to Toi Tangata Kino is where we'll see a line that drops down into spiders from there. You can see a line dropping from monehu down into spiders from there as well. So there's quite a few different ways you can get to looking at spiders, and all of them are interesting in their own right. They're kind of cool. And I love that about whakapapa. Well, there's another one too, actually, through Tāne and Hine Tupare Maunga. Sometimes she's called Hine Tua Maunga, but Hine Tupare Maunga and Tāne, underneath there it goes down into Takaho. And from Takaho, there's a concept around Māori thinking that looks at the hard shell that you find on some insects, because Takaho is normally associated as the atua of rocks. And so there's a thinking there that the hard shell that's on insects has come down through that line of Hine, Tupare, Maunga, and Tāne joining together, and we get rocks underneath that, and then there's a line that comes off that ends up back beside Toi Tangata Kino, which is the rock combined with Toi Tangata Kino gives you those insects with hard shells. We still all right, bro?
Right. You got a few partai. Tira pia nuku ki te taha whakatina nā kone. But I'll just ask a couple of partai tuatai. So one of the questions was, are there any tips for getting buy-in from mainstream schools with high population Māori, and how this complements the whole curriculum?
I'll say that one again, bro.
Are there any tips for mainstream curriculum with high population Māori, and how do you embed that into the whole curriculum, because it has links and complements?
Well, we're just looking at how we're building Atua Matua into curriculum for kura at the moment. If there's interest from mainstream schools, then we'll look at how to bring that to them. There's opportunities for having it all through curriculum with no problem at all. It really is to do with the creativity of how you look at learning opportunities that are presented from environment. And I
think that's quite something that's happened automatically with the kaupapa that's happened at the moment, in terms of the lockdown and isolation, in terms of how curriculum had to change very quickly, very swiftly, into how they're able to continue to tautoko those tamariki when they're at home now.
Yeah, no, hard. Well, what I'll do is I'll get to the point as quickly as I can, because I'll talk you to death on whakapapa otherwise. But the real interesting thing underneath this is all these different lines that get down to spiders. And in spiders, it's not just punga were were. I can give you 10, 12, 20 different names that we have for spiders. And interestingly, a lot of them are to connect to the type of web they make. So we've got Papa Nui, Paparangi, Papangu, Papapango, different types of webs that they're connected with. Tokorako. There's one in there that I particularly like is Peke Peke Titiato, which is grey spiders. The other one that you'll have a lot at your house will be Haratua. Now, if we look at the connection to whenua, then we look at that whakapapa up there. Then we drop down into the huahuatau, and I've already discussed some of those, that we can use it for time management, we can use it for injuries, we can use it for tracking people. we can also use it for, you two girls over there, can you come out here and lie on the ground? And this is one that we mess around with at home, is that I'll get the girls down onto the ground and we'll study all of these first, and we'll look at which spider we want to study. We'll try and find it. Then we'll come in and we'll look at the spider and we'll show different ways that it moves. That if I stick my finger towards it, it'll back up, or it'll lift up on its hind legs, or it'll go sideways. It'll do a whole range of different things. And someone says to me, you never catch a spider by surprise. They always look like they're ready because they're leaning forward and they're on 8 legs like, yeah, bring it. That's why I kind of like them, is all the different spiders do things around that. So the whakatinanatanga of spiders is this version here, where sometimes what we'll do is I have the girls on the ground and we go up into the position of being in the spiders. And then Kaya here on my right is the one that's the attacking spider. So she's going to move forward and Awatia's got to match that. So anytime she moves forward, Kaya, Awatia's got to match that by moving backwards. So sometimes for one of our physical activity exercises that we'll do in here, you go backwards, Kaya, and then she follows her. Is that we'll sometimes trial different ways of copying some of the patterns that these insects are doing. If you'd like, you can have a rest for a second, is that Kung Fu is based on the same ideas of studying different animals like panda, like crane and so on, and figuring out what they do. We did the same thing, and we're still doing the same thing. So there's one example that comes through spiders. We've got a set of stairs in our house, and I've tried to go up the stairs backwards in the spider crawl and having someone follow and then going down the stairs, and those are brutal. And sand dunes are another one. They're pretty tough on those. Moving around and through the house and following each other is one of our CrossFit sessions for that, is mean as. Now, the next one I'll quickly show you is this same line over here, mostly from Homea Tiki down to Rahu gets us to Monehu. Rotane comes out from that one. Rotane, stick insect. So, Kai, if you show us a stick insect on the ground, prone hold. Yeah, so here's our stick insect on the ground. So what we try and do with Rotane is we'll have a look outside and figure out which way the wind is blowing. And then when we're practicing this, I'll get the prone hold. So the wind's coming at me from westerly, which means on this side, so it's going to push you across this way. So it changes our prone hold to reflect what's happening with the wind.
You want me to do it?
Whoa, she just got...
He whātai tāte tahi hua.
Okay.
Thinking about the daddy long legs, he punga were Māori tēnei?
Yes, but peke haratua. Sometimes what I'll see in classification in books is they'll talk to me about waiwai matua roa or matua waiwai roa, a whole range of different versions. It's era, B. You just made that shit up. There's daddy long legs. So we've got quite a few names for all the different colors, but like I said, that's connected to the web. Katipo is one that we had quite a strong connection to, but they're kind of rare anyway. You don't see many of those. But because of the number of daddy long legs, haratua, peke haratua. Pai.
Ka pai. E pātai anō tāte tahi, ahua hono ai ki tēnei kaupapa. So in Whangarei, there's a good presence of pupurangi on Parihaka Maunga. Any kōrero on the pupurangi?
Well, it depends on which level you want to talk about those particular insects about. Whether it's the whakapapi you want to know about, whether it's how to use that particular insect as an opportunity for changing and learning more about your own strengths, or what you can build as a whakatinanatanga output from that. So I've got a stack of it, and a lot more whakapapa lines down into there's really clear splits between anuhe and punga were and those insects that are, so waiwairoa is in there sometimes, and namu iria is in there, those ones that draw blood. There's 4 real clear lines. And peketu is the other one that you see quite a bit of information about. Peketu is millipedes. So there's classifications that we have as Māori, and it'll slot into one of those classifications, and then you'll be able to drop down into more information from there. So they're specific to the environment they come from. Here's one that you will find come up next to it, is that sometimes you'll see that they talk about pohutakawa. When they discuss pohutakawa in terms of insects and whakapapa, pohutakawa is a name for a kumara variation that we had because of the red color, and they're talking about the impact of that particular caterpillar on that variety of kumara, not the tree. They're different bloody things, as you know, but that's what they're discussing, so don't get misled. We still sweet?
Ai, he pātai anō tātou tahi.
Okay.
So this kaupapa, I think, similar to traditional thinking.
Karen, bro, I'm just joking.
So this is similar to traditional thinking in the oceanic cultures. Obviously, there's a hokainga kaupapa, but how might this message and thinking be put out there in other oceanic cultures without being labelled a God hater?
I'm not sure I know what you mean by the last part of it. God hater, as in Jesus.
Takune whakaro te taha karaitiana pia o ngā hono irapomo, I'm assuming. Hepi, confirm that if we're going in the wrong direction, therefore send another message.
No. It's an easy one to discuss because we've had this one happen quite often. And the discussion we have with this one is there's a massive difference between te atua and ngā atua. Ngā atua happens post separation of rangi and papa, and it's environmental science. And that's what we're discussing today, is environmental science, pure and simple. Anything to do with te atua is pre-wehenga. And that's a discussion on Christianity, creationism, and other versions of God that people might want to stick to and adhere to. I don't go anywhere near that. This is a discussion about science. And this is all post wehenga of rangi and papa. And all of these different atua have been developed and described in such detail for us to learn. That's what the point is. Sweet?
One more, there's one more sitting there, so we might as well get it out while it's here. So autism, ADHD, dyslexia, how do these relate to tohutaka? And examples on ngā mea katoa te tohutaka me ki. That another wānanga that we need to do together?
Yeah, that's quite a big one. I had a discussion about this recently to do with how does disability come into this space? And there was another request that followed up right next to it about suicide and about the impact of phases of when we're coherent and when we're incoherent. And there's a number of atua that are engaged with those particular issues that we see, or expressions of atua coming through and being at the forefront, and us seeing those in kids. Sometimes it's useful for us to be able to externalize the process by saying that it's atua and their influence and impact on the child, so that it removes blame from our kids, saying, well, it's not the kid's fault, there's some other things that are influencing it. But when we name it, it means that we can put it outside the kid, and the kid can then have some initiatives to engage with control, because we can take it out, draw it, then screw it up and say, we're in control now, or we can discuss it and figure out ways to address it. So there's some benefit in being able to externalize a problem or an issue. I don't see them as problems necessarily, actually. I see them more as opportunities for us to be more creative in the way we design our programs to address some of those areas.
Yeah, I guess a lot of the kaupapa is an innovative approach to how you interpret those Mātauranga, right? So bring a different set of skill sets that can contribute to this kaupapa anyway.
And again, in that area of huhuatau, there's opportunities for being really creative in that metaphor space, for looking at some of the things that are represented in our group and how we're going to be able to emphasize or de-emphasize the things that we want to, in order to be able to move forward. If there's more interest in that particular question, they'll have to come to me directly, because I wrote a bit of work on this one just recently in the last 2 or 3 months, because I had some questions about disability in relation to Atua Matua, and there's a stack of information there. It's quite cool too. So are we still sweet?
Right, there's one more pātai.
I got a pātai. Can I jump in? So we had a bit of a recent trip down to Rangaiti Marae with the whānau for whānau hui recently, and we noticed that Piata has our youngest, oh no, she's not our youngest, she's our second to youngest now, has this natural affinity to ngā kohatu. So she would go and grab them, she'd find these little games to play. And so my pātai are around, you know, how could we use Atua Matua to, I guess, deepen our own knowledge of her connection to the taiao in that way. And then two, how do we embrace her love for the kohatu as well?
We've had a discussion about some similar instances in the past about why kohatu might be more or less engaging for different groups. Sometimes when we go back through a whakapapa line, we'll find other instances of why. And it explains through that being present in the past, and that's kind of useful to know some of those things just in means of that research and investigation into that line. But there's also opportunities for including more of that information around them so that you can advance and speed up their learning. Because if they had a preference for that particular area, then include that as much as you can. There's also plenty of examples in tamaki there that you can look out the window and see ways to teach those rangitoto, because that maunga pu, or that volcano in there, that's a colour that we see in rocks. Any rocks that have a red colour running through it, we can teach about rangitoto, the whakapapa down into where we find that. Then we can go off for walks around the garden and try and find some of those. Then we can engage in different types of games of toko hei, where we would build, or toko teitei, sorry, where we would build up rocks on top of each other and look for different colours that are from our district. Onewa Road's another one. Onewa is actually a colour of a rock that we use that is black, sometimes blue, that comes through, and it's in tamaki. So those areas where they're named for that, that's where the rocks are. But you find them in your back garden in any district within Auckland. So there's plenty of teaching examples there.
We'll have to jump out on our hikoi around the block and have a little look for some. It's actually funny that you say that, because even Dario's brother Manihira, he has a real affinity to kohatu as well. So it is
at the same age, so it's sort of been passed on without even.
Probably the most interesting thing about kohatu, and I've only been slowly coming to realise this, is I spent quite a few years as a rock stone wall builder in Central Otago. So I had to go out and dig the rocks up, split them, put them into a wall, and dry stone walling, so no cement. And one of the things I found out about rocks is you can't make them do what they don't want to do. They won't fit in the wall. And it used to take 2 weeks before I could calm my head down to not be rushing all around the place trying to find the rock and let the rock come to you. And what I found with kohatu is that the knowledge contained within kohatu is much slower to be released, but its significance is much more. So the engaging with rocks is quite a different process altogether. You can't force them to do anything. You just have to be around them, and then they're slowly unloaded into you, and you find out more and more about them. Whereas wai is instantaneous. If you blow a breath across water, it shifts and moves and it responds. Whereas rocks, you can knock away at them for a long time and nothing happens. But the more you're surrounded by them, the more they unload to you, and usually the big picture stuff. So
sounds like Piata Tua Tea, actually. Cool, ngā mihi.
Ka wai. I wano ngā pātai, they can probably be sort of combined together. Tētahi me tuku te reo Māori ki ngā kura katoa me ngā tamariki katoa. Anō hoki, ki tō whakaro e whitu te kau ngā atua wahine, atua tāne rānei.
Yeah, and ki tōku ne whakaro, there's equal number in both areas. If you go to the coast where there's, and it was a real shame this wasn't recorded, but I remember being up by the fellas in Ruatoria, the Hene up there, Phil Hene and his Horangatira, and they had one of their kaumātua come in and talk to them about the 70 atua wahine exclusively and nothing else. I don't know that they captured that, but in areas, some areas there's a real stronghold of understanding atua wahine. And so teaching both is really important. I think what's happened in the past is that it's been Pākehā ethnologists asking other male Māori, what do you know about this? And so there's been a tendency to just record male-influenced information, but there's a truckload of information about Atua Wahine out there as well. And slowly we're unloading and showing more of that. I know too that there was a PhD done recently on Atua Wahine, so it's a growing field, and there's no way that we can say that Atua Tāne are dominant in this area at all.
Papa, e pātai anō, where would one whānau start in terms of thinking about Atua Matua, and how could this, be an act of something that they're implementing right now in the lockdown period?
Well, one of the things that we do is, because Atua Matua, I should probably have got to this right at the start, before I even started showing you some of these exercises that we were doing out the back here, is we'll look at a different area each day. It might be about which part of hua tau of something that we find within the house we can discuss of what does this actually mean. So we've looked at those before. Sometimes it's about a discussion with my kids around the whakapapa of where these things come from. So I'll be teaching them whakapapa of different atua, of different kaitiaki, of different insects, whichever, so that they slowly get more of an understanding and knowledge of all these different things. So for Atua Matua, you can go into the whakapapa line, you can go into the hua tau, you can connect to information or Mātauranga Māori, Mātauranga o ngā tangata whenua, o te ao. So you can be looking at all Indigenous knowledge if you want to, online, and figuring out what it means and what it's intended to do. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll build a CrossFit program and use our gym there to run an Atua Matua CrossFit session based on which insects we're seeing around here. Today, we had a lot of flies. They're bloody everywhere. There's an atua for flies, tūtini ariki. And that atua was used for showing when someone had died or where there was something rotting. So often what I'll use that one for is if I'm out hunting and all of a sudden one blowfly goes past and then there's four going the same direction, it lets me know that maybe a pig took a crap down that way and it's heading that way. So I can track people, I can track animals, I can do a whole heap of things. But when they're in the house today, and I think Aniwa can vouch for this one because it happened quite a few times, I'll kill the flies, but I'll let the blowflies out the window. Yeah. The reason I let the blowflies out the window is those are the two tini ariki ones that are closest, and they're going to be able to help me find anything I need to find later on. So I let them roll. So I've built quite a few CrossFit programs. I've built other kind of cycling things that we do on our bike here, stationary bike. Is any number of different things that we can write on. It just depends on what your buzz is. I feel like we haven't had enough time to get into any real depth around this. So if there's interest from our listeners and they want to do more at a later stage, then I'll come back and focus on particular areas. Really, it's just been and when we were talking, Dario, I said to you, shit, I don't know if I've got enough to talk to for an hour. I have to put video.
I told him it will be fine. It's going to zoom by really quickly. Yeah, but and it feels like it has. Awesome job, Pahinima. It was brilliant. Ka pai runga I tira, tuatahi tēnei mihi atu ana kia koe te tuakana mo ngā mātauranga ko tākuhua te kia mātou anō. I think we had 100 or so registered participants. You had 103. I don't know how that works. So we've had a very good attendance by all of the kaimahi, and I think everyone would be looking forward to what the next progression for this kaupapa is. So a couple of things that we're going to do is there should be something that's probably in your inbox right about now with some evaluation of this particular kaupapa today, but it also has attached into it some of the links to videos and information on kaupapa that Ihi has shared in the past. And what we'd like to do is, with the feedback that you guys have, we can probably run a series of other kaupapa during this period for the time that everybody's in the lockdown. And I guess one of the takeaways that I've thought about during this kōrero e hoa was I think everyone has the ability to be touching on Atua Matua. And I think it's just about starting the process of engaging in the mātauranga that whānau have interest in. So our Piata's affinity to toka, we need to start honing in on that because that's an interest that she has. and it's a Mātauranga aspect as well. So, I runga I tēnā, ko ai tēnei dario e tukumihi atana ka koe e hoa, o tira kia tātou I wānanga ki tēnei wānanga hiko me ki. So I'd just like to say a big mihi to everyone for giving up their time. 8 p.m. in the evening seems to be a hit for the wānanga space. So mihi atu ana kia koutou ko tō whānau, o tira kia tātou katoa. If you have other pātai, please make sure to send them through on the evaluation. Ka pai. Kia ora tātou.
Koe taku mihi, kia koe e hoa mō tō tautoko ki tēnei tūmomo mahi. Ngā mātauranga o ngā atua, ngā kaitiaki me e rā mea. I appreciate the fact that everybody would come on 8 o'clock at night, and the fact that there was so many there means you're trying to get out of doing the dishes. But I'm humbled that there would be people to even listen. It's good for my girls to know that there's a place for Mātauranga Māori too, so that they see the interest from other people, because they think it's just me rabbiting on the whole time.
100 people, girls. 100 people were listening.
His favourite.
Aniwa said to me a little while ago, bro, or Dad, you've gone viral. Your video's got 8 people. I said, Ed, that's not viral.
Did they say no?
So I'm humbled that people would come and watch, and that you supported us through this. Make sure you fellas get in contact with Nikki too, to be able to figure out how you can get some of the e-learning into your schools and tamaki through them. Ko tira, tēnā koutou ki mai tātou. Thank you very much.